Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. One of Shiv Sena leader Uddhav Thackeray's closest confidants, Sanjay Raut, is in the custody of the Enforcement Directorate, arrested under what the ED says is a 1,000 crore chawl redevelopment scam. Apparently 1 crore of funds have been found on Mr. Sanjay Raut, who says that this is nothing but political vendetta and that his freedom has been taken away. Now, the Supreme Court did make it clear that the role of the Enforcement Directorate in investigations stands, but given the poor conviction rate, and this is what we're asking you, and how many more in the opposition appear to be targeted by the Enforcement Directorate, the question being asked once again is this: the ED's conviction rate is at 2.5%. Is it harassment rate at 100%? 2.5% conviction, but is the harassment, particularly if you're in the opposition, at 100%? Joining us now, Abhishek Agnihotri, the Shiv Sena leader. We're also joined by Sunil Mendhe of the BJP, Clyde Castro of the NCP, Supriya Shinate of the Congress, Sushmita Deb of the Trinamool Congress. We're also joined by Deshratan Nigam. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. Abhishek Agnihotri, a simple, all right, we don't have him as yet, but Clyde Castro, let me ask you a question. You've been very close to the Shiv Sena led by Uddhav Thackeray. Had Sanjay Raut not been part of this part of the Shiv Sena, would this action have happened against him?
Well, the answer is right in front of you. You see, Mr. Sanjay Raut has been a staunch supporter of Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, of the Balasaheb Thackeray Shiv Sena. And that's one of the reasons why he's here. Because if you go back to maybe a few months ago, you had Mr. Kirit Somaya going to town holding press conferences. They were accusing Sanjay Raut ji of holding press conferences. But, Kirit Somaya was holding press conferences and he was accusing people like Pratap Sarnaik, Yamini Jadhav, Arjun Khorkar, even to the extent of Mr. Narayan Rane. All these people, if you see now, and some of them are part of the so-called Shinde group. Okay. Now, what happened to the cases against them? The ED had been to their houses, the ED had been to their premises, raided them, called them for investigations, and now suddenly there's complete silence on those issues. So the fact of the matter is, what you asked me, the question, has an answer. The answer is that Mr. Sanjay Raut being with the Shiv Sena is why this is happening. If that is the case, and if, like the Supreme Court has said, that the ED has a part to play, then I think the ED should play its part and go through cases that they've mentioned before.
Okay.
And it's no, I'm not saying, hear me out. I'm not saying just because a Kirit Somaya is raising a question or raising, some kind of doubts on somebody. They have raised issues. The ED has gone and checked on all these people. I have a list of 28 people who, when they were not in the BJP or they were not in the so-called Shinde camp, the ED has been probing them. Now there's complete silence on all those cases. The question here is,
okay, and it's not, in fact, it's not just that. Clyde, 1 second. Sunil Babu Rao Mendhe with us as well. Sunil ji, ये बताएं, अगर हम बीजेपी के नेताओं के बारे में एक लिस्ट देखें, तो हिमंता बिस्वा शर्मा, Sharada scam, B.S. Yediyurappa, disproportionate assets case, Narayan Rane joined the BJP from the Congress, money laundering case, Shuvendu Adhikari joined the BJP from the Trinamool Congress. Let's have that graphic up. Shuvendu Adhikari also involved allegedly in the Naroda scam. तो सवाल ये है सर कि बीजेपी के जो नेता है उनके खिलाफ ये एक्शन, ये कार्रवाई क्यों नहीं होती और एक्शन सिर्फ ऑपोजिशन के लीडर्स के खिलाफ क्यों है? Let me go across to Deshratan Nigam and put that question to him. Deshratan ji, why is this disproportionate?
Opposition Vishnu, you raised a very important question and it requires a legal answer. But before I come to that question, let me talk about conviction rate. The conviction rate which is being given is the number of convictions taking place divided by the number of cases filed. The actual conviction rate would come when the convicted cases are divided by the number of cases adjudicated upon, finally adjudicated upon. That comes very, very high. And that in fact touches about 90%. And therefore, even in the case of Lalu Yadav, it took about 20-25 years. The money trail needs to be established and it is a very cumbersome process to, have a foolproof case once the investigation starts, and they are looking for that. Now, coming to the, the BJP cases are not being the people who have joined BJP or something, and the opposition uses the concept of a washing machine. Let me tell you, once a case goes to the court, it is out of the hands of ED or the government. It is monitored by the court. It is only up to the court to give any relief or not. So anybody who's saying that washing machine, it is on the taints or the stains can only be removed by the court. Even the BJP cannot, or any government can do anything about it.
No, but
so
Deshratan ji, just one point I disagree with. Since 2005, according to statistics, the rate of conviction is only 1 in 16 accused. Since 2005, and that's just 6.25% under PMLA, right? That where the Enforcement Directorate is a necessary part of investigations. So how do you say that the conviction rate is finally
adjudicated by the Supreme Court? You have that cases, and you should divide it by the number of conviction. Then only you will get the correct one, not by the prosecution complaints. Therefore, the correct conviction rate, because it takes a lot of time under such cases. I gave you the example of Lalu Prasad Yadav. It took almost 25 years. So therefore, the correct conviction rate will only come if you divide the conviction with the number of adjudicated cases finally by the Supreme Court.
Okay, Sushmita,
so that goes very high.
How would you respond to this? That that conviction rate, he says, isn't accurately represented. Some would suggest it is, but the point is this: between 2005 and 2014, there were 112 Enforcement Directorate raids. Between 2014 and 2022, 3010 raids. Again, let's have that graphic come up. PMLA cases and convictions, let's have that graphic come up. ED raids between 2005 and 2014, 112, and 2014 to now 3010. Right? In fact, it's more than that. Does this not reflect the fact that this government is going after people in a way that is unprecedented? The question is why.
See, Vishnu, the point here is that the law must treat everybody equally. That's what the opposition is saying. If a government of the day like ours is claiming that they are going after corruption, the only question we are asking is, look at all the names that are coming up who are subjected to ED raids and investigation. Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, Abhishek Banerjee, Chidambaram, Karti Chidambaram, Sanjay Raut. But at the same time, there is enough prima facie evidence to say that the Chief Minister of Assam should be investigated for the Sharda case, which was the case of the BJP before he joined the BJP. Let's go back a little bit more. What happened in the Vyapam case? It was such a big scam. It was such a big scam. Nothing came out of it. The people were not prosecuted. So, and the other thing, very importantly, which Chief Minister of Bengal is saying, that you started the Sharda case, it's been 10 years and there's no charge sheet. She's asking for a time-bound investigation in Partha Chatterjee's case and come out with the reality. So the process should not become the punishment.
Okay, the process shouldn't be the punishment.
Yeah.
Vishnu, can I get a minute?
Sorry, yeah, go ahead, yes.
This is Clyde here.
Clyde, go ahead, yes, quickly.
Yeah. Vishnu, you know what? Mr. Nigam made it sound so simple and so easy, and I wish it was that simple and easy. But he says that the court has to decide later on. The point here is, all these leaders that have joined the BJP now, I mean, the ED did not lead them to the court. Let them arrest these people, then let the court decide. Point is, now that they've joined BJP, everything seems to be very simple. There's no questions raised. Nobody's talking about it. Everybody is very silent about it. If the law has to take its course, and let me tell you, nobody's above the law. Everybody who reaches the court and the law is taking its course, the law will take its course, and they have to be treated that way. But the point here is and it's up, you mentioned a lot of names. The latest also washing machine case that we are talking about was Hardik Patel. So the point here is, if you really need to do justice, if you really need to catch these people, then lead them to court and let the court decide. Why is everybody silent about it?
Okay. Sunil Babura Mendhe, Lok Sabha MP of the BJP joins us. सुनील जी, अगर आप स्टैटिस्टिक्स देखते तो ये एकदम अनफेयर है. ऑपोजिशन नेताओं के खिलाफ ज्यादा केसेस है और बीजेपी नेताओं के खिलाफ कम केसेस. तो अगर कोई कहते कि ईडी इज बीइंग यूज्ड अनफेयरली, इस पे आप क्या कहेंगे?
सर, दो बातें मैं कहना चाहूँगा। इससे पहले भी जब कांग्रेस की सरकार थी तब भी आप यदि देखते हैं तो रेशियो आपको ऐसा ही नज़र आएगा। मगर आप देखिए कि ईडी को आप किसी एक बोलिए सरकार से जोड़ते हैं तो हमने तब भी कभी जोड़ने की कोशिश नहीं की और अब आज भी कोशिश नहीं कर रहे हैं हम लोग। और बात रही कन्विक्शन रेट की जिसकी बात आ रही थी, मैं ठीक से सुन नहीं पा रहा था आप लोगों को, लेकिन उसमें भी आपने देखा होगा कि जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट, जब कांग्रेस के कुछ लीडर गए ईडी के इसी विषय रवैया पे, तो उनको भी मुंह की खानी पड़ी और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने क्लियर
सच बात है, एब्सोल्युटली सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने साफ तौर से कहा है कि जो नियम है, जो कानून है, ईडी का जो यूज है वो अलाउड है,
वो ईडी अपना काम कर रही है।
पर मैं सिर्फ आपसे ये पूछ रहा हूं,
मुझे लगता है कि
कन्विक्शन रेट इतना कम है, और आप जो कह रहे थे कि पहले भी जब कांग्रेस सरकार थी तब ईडी यूज करते थे, पर अगर आप देखें 2005 से 2014 112 ईडी रेड्स थे और 2014 से 2022 3010 ईडी रेड्स हो चुके हैं। तो इसमें क्या कहेंगे?
बिल्कुल सर, क्योंकि वो तब भी देखिए कि तब भी जो भी कुछ भ्रष्टाचार हो रहा था वो भी कांग्रेस वाले ही कर रहे थे तब भी। आज भी जो भी आपको देख रहे हो, वो भी वही कर रहे हैं, तो वो उन पे यूज नहीं कर रहे थे,
अभी कर रहे हैं।
अभी मगर ऐसा है, जब से मोदी सरकार आई है, जो लोग इसमें कल्पित है, जो कल्पित है, सबको ईडी को फेस करे ना। मुझे ईडी पे डाउट लेने के बजाय वो कोर्ट जाए, कोर्ट में अपने आप को।
ओके, सुप्रिया, गो अहेड। सुप्रिया,
महाराष्ट्र संजय राउत की
1 सेकंड, सुप्रिया, गो अहेड।
मैं सुनील जी की जानकारी के लिए यहाँ पे बता दूं, 5422 केसेस ईडी ने रजिस्टर किए हैं, जिसमें से 65% 65% ऑफ द केसेस रजिस्टर्ड बाय द ईडी have been under the Modi government. Conviction rate is less than 1%, half a percentage point, वो अलग बात है। लेकिन ईडी जो है ना, अब इंडिपेंडेंट एजेंसी नहीं रहा। बीजेपी वाले ये नहीं समझ पा रहे। ईडी जो है वो भारतीय जनता पार्टी का नया फ्रंटल बन चुका है। ईडी is being used to topple democratically elected governments. ED is being used to silence critics of this government. ED is being used to settle political scores. ED is being used to intimidate their own so that they don't speak against the wrongdoings of the government. ED के ये KRAs है। आपको चुनी हुई सरकारें गिराना है, पैसा फेंकेंगे और ED भेजेंगे। क्या ये इत्तेफाक था कि अशोक गहलोत जी के भाई क्या ED पहुंची जब वहां पर दिक्कत थी? क्या ये इत्तेफाक था जब वेस्ट बंगाल का चुनाव हो रहा था तो ममता बनर्जी जी के यहाँ ईडी पहुंची थी, अभिषेक बनर्जी जी के यहाँ? क्या ये इत्तेफाक था कि जब पंजाब का चुनाव हो रहा था तो चंडी जी को ईडी में बुलाया गया था? क्या ये सारी चीजें इत्तेफाक है? मैं पहली चीज पूछना चाहती हूँ। और दूसरी चीज, जो जरूरी चीज मैं बोलना चाहती हूँ, आज क्योंकि एनफोर्समेंट डायरेक्टरेट टैक्स पेयर्स के मनी से चलता है सुनील जी, जरूरी है that the parliament should scrutinize.
All right, the parliament should scrutinize these cases. All right, सुनील जी बताइए। सुनील जी जवाब दीजिए। सुनील जी जवाब दीजिए।
जी जरूर मैं देना चाहूँगा। आप देखिए, अब जैसा कि अब मैं फिर से मैडम को प्रॉपर हियर, कभी भी मेरा शायद साउंड ठीक नहीं है, मैं इतना इसमें कहना चाहूँगा कि आप जब भी देखें भ्रष्टाचारों के बारे में, पिछले 8 साल से मोदी गवर्नमेंट काम कर रही है, आप एक भी मंत्री पे छोटा सा आरोप भी लगा नहीं पा रहे हैं। और इसके सिवा जब कभी पहले जो यूपीए की सरकार थी, उनका आप कारोबार देखिए तो इससे आपको ध्यान में आएगा कि इन सभी विरोधी जो बात कर रहे हैं, ईडी पे जो डाउट ले रहे हैं, जब जहां इनकी सरकार है, इस तरह से भ्रष्टाचार से लिप्त ये लोग सरकार चलाते हैं। आपने पश्चिम बंगाल में अभी देखा, आपने भी झारखंड देख रहे हैं, तो ये इस तरह से कुछ काम करेंगे और आप बोलेंगे ईडी अपना काम न करे, ईडी कुछ न करे। संजय राउत जी ये कहे कि भैया ईडी मुझ पे झूठे आरोप लड़ रहे हैं,
सुनील जी एक सेकंड, सुनील जी एक सेकंड
के लिए उनको आरोप है वो
जी
सुप्रिया गो अहेड। यस यस,
आई वांट टू मेक अ वेरी ब्रीफ पॉइंट।
यस,
आपके जो असम के मुख्यमंत्री है ना सुनील जी, जब असम में बाढ़ आई हुई थी तो वो खरीद फरोख्त में सब्जियां क्या खा रहे हैं सांसद और मीट मछली क्या खाया जा रहा है वो देखने जाते थे होटल। आपके मुख्यमंत्री झारखंड की चुनी हुई सरकार को तोड़ने में पूरी तरह से ईडी का और पैसे का उपयोग कर रहे हैं। आप भ्रष्टाचार की बात मत करिए, जिसको शायद सेक्शंस ऑफ द मीडिया चाणक्य नीति कहता है, दैट इज ब्लेटेंट हॉर्स ट्रेडिंग, जो आप लोकतंत्र की हत्या करने के लिए कर रहे हैं। बट आई विल मेक अ वेरी ब्रीफ पॉइंट। बीजेपी ने क्या किया है, ईडी के द्वारा एक वॉशिंग मशीन तैयार करी है। अगर आप बीजेपी के खिलाफ बोलेंगे तो आपके खिलाफ ईडी के केसेस होंगे। आपने एकनाथ शिंदे के साथ मिलकर सरकार बनाई है ना, उनके काफी लोगों के खिलाफ ईडी के केसेस चल रहे थे। अब वो केसेस बंद क्यों हो गए? उन केसेस का पर्सुएशन क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? हेमंत बिस्वा शर्मा के केस का क्या हुआ? नारायण राणे के केस का क्या हुआ? येट्टी ब्रदर्स के केस का क्या हुआ? येदियुरप्पा जी के केस का क्या हुआ? ये मैं जानना चाहती हूँ। Why are the ED cases against people who?
All right, Deshratan Nigam, please take that question. Deshratan ji, take that question.
Vishnu, can I get
Yes.
One minute, Deshratan. I need to buy 1 second, Supriya, 1 second. Deshratan ji, go ahead.
Let me first, reply that whether Parliament can or should scrutinize these matters. In a distribution of powers under a democracy, once the matter goes to the court, it is the courts which will scrutinize it, not the Parliament. Parliament has no role out there. Let us make it very clear. It goes up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is the final adjudicating authority out there, not the Parliament once the case is court.
1 second, Supriya, let him please speak. 1 second, please.
So legislation and policy you can discuss. It's all right. But scrutinizing cases is not within the domain of the Parliament. Let us be very, very clear. Now, secondly, washing machine. As I said, all these courts, all these matters are before the court. If anything is going wrong, the courts are there to sue it. I think even the Congress can make applications before the court.
Do you agree with me that things are going wrong or not? That's only the only question I'm
let me
asking.
answer. Let me answer you. Let me answer you. Let me
1 second,
answer
Supriya,
you.
let him speak. Supriya, we can't do this like this. Supriya, just let him speak, please.
Give us an opportunity.
So the fact is, if there is anything wrong, the courts are there because it's under the domain of the courts.
Okay, all right. So it's the domain of the courts. You believe it will ultimately
Give me time.
come up in the courts. But 1 second, Abhishek Agnihotri also joins us, and I'll be joined by Priyanka Chaturvedi as well of the Shiv Sena in a few moments from now. But Abhishek Agnihotri, the charges which have actually been raised against Sanjay Raut are very serious. For example, Swapna Patkar, a complainant on the 22nd of July, has alleged rape and murder threats against her, right, by those close to Sanjay Raut. So therefore, how can we just say that the allegations are fake?
ये देखिए, आपके चैनल के माध्यम से मैं सब पक्ष रखने का आपने मौका दे, इसके लिए सबसे पहले आप लोगों को धन्यवाद प्रकट करना चाहता हूँ। आपको एक चीज बता दूं, जितने भी एलिगेशन ये इलेक्शन और सरकार को अस्थिर करने के दौरान लगाए जाते हैं, तो ये सभी को पता है कि गंदी राजनीति का एक चरित्र चेहरा है ये, जो चरित्र खुल के सामने आता है जो सत्ताधारी पार्टी होती है उसका। तो जैसा कि हमारी भी कांग्रेस प्रवक्ता महोदया कह रही थी, बहुत अच्छी बात उन्होंने बोली।
जी बताइए। All right,
Vishnu, can I come in here, please?
Sorry, we've lost him at that stage, but I am joined at this stage by Priyanka Chaturvedi, Rajya Sabha MP and spokesperson of the Shiv Sena. Priyanka, thank you very much for being with us. Now, I mean, it's the same question that I was asking Mr. Agnihotri. The ED has made serious accusations against Sanjay Raut. For example, he apparently threatened a key witness with rape and murder. So how would you respond to this?
I wouldn't want to go into what are the charges made against, because the Enforcement Directorate's job is to look at financial frauds and talk about that, which unfortunately they haven't been able to produce much. Now, as far as this particular person is concerned, this has been a long-standing family feud between the two sides. I would not want to go into the details of it because that would be for the ED and for Sanjay Raut to answer. But however, having said that, for them to just leak out selected audio, etc., is just one part of the story. And those videos, audios that has been playing all over, are they tampered with? Have they been checked? Have they been checked with whether these or the audio, the main source of this audio? So all these questions, this is a very grey zone to be in. They can keep hurling these accusations till they don't prove it in the court of law. Till then, they will be merely accusations used to politically attack and carry out their political witch hunt.
Priyanka, Sanjay Raut through Praveen Raut is alleged to have received 1.12 crore rupees. So I mean, this is what they're saying, and it's a 1,000 crore plus scam, apparently.
No, absolutely incorrect amount that is being quoted. And again, I would remind you of the 2G, during Vinod Raiji, who was the CAG chief, there were huge amounts of money which were shown as scam money, and huge amounts of front page stories were carried out on the basis of the charges made. What has happened 8 years down the line? None of those charges have been proved. So they can keep throwing numbers up. He can say 100 crores, they can say 200 crores, 1,000 crores, 2,000 crores. The onus is on Enforcement Directorate for them to be able to show that they are working in an impartial manner. They're trying to find financial frauds and get financial accountability and transparency to the system. They would need to prove all these numbers. Till now, what I've been hearing is 112 crores made by Mr. Praveen Raut, and out of that 1.2 crore or some XYZ money. And that's part of some illegal proceeds.
So
that
therefore,
is absolutely absurd charges to make with no documents to prove that it is a fraud.
So therefore, what is this all about? Is this, do you believe, an effort to put pressure on the Shiv Sena, those who are still, supporting Uddhav Thackeray, that look, if you don't listen in, then the ED might come after you? Is that what this is about?
Absolutely. Since 2019, when the alliance came undone and we formed a government with a new alliance, they have been targeting us in such a vindictive fashion, right from trying to topple our government, engineering that entire rebellion that we saw recently, again using the fear of Enforcement Directorate, CBI, IT. But I can just say one thing. There are those loyalists who are facing this kind of political vendetta, and there are those who feared and ran away and are now sitting in the lap of the Bharatiya Janata Party. This is their pressure tactics, where they started a new model. One is the elected democracy model, where they win an election and they form the government. The other thing that Bharatiya Janata Party has introduced in this country is an enforced democracy model, where they use these central agencies to disturb non-BJP governments and to topple those governments and make their own governments. We've seen this in Madhya Pradesh, we've seen this in Arunachal Pradesh, we've seen this in Karnataka, we have seen this in Maharashtra. So there's the electoral democracy, there's the enforced democracy. That is what we are fighting.
No, but that's all very well. But Sanjay Raut has skipped questioning on at least 2 occasions. The ED says that he isn't cooperating.
So those 2 occasions were when Parliament was in session, and in fact he had written a written request had gone through him that I would be busy with my parliamentary obligations. Parliament is in session. I have answered all your questions. If there are any additional questions for me to answer, I'd be happy to do that post the session is over. But since I am in Delhi, it would be too much for me to keep doing this to and fro. Let's do this after the Parliament session. I can also give an example of a recently converted to Bharatiya Janata Party breakaway faction of the Shiv Sena, where 10 ED summons were given. The person does not attend even one single summon, but is attending the Parliament. So anyone who is vocally speaking against the Bharatiya Janata Party, anyone who has put them in a dock and asked them tough questions, is now being hounded through these various agencies. So it is pretty clear as daylight that those who are with them will not have any ED, CBI, IT following them. Those who are speaking against them, they'll have all these people gunning for them till the time they can choose to silence them, they can arrest them, they can suspend us in the Parliament. This is what is happening, and I think that is what needs to be challenged.
All right, well, some would suggest that the process is the punishment, but ultimately it's going to be a court that's going to decide that. Sanjay Raut being questioned for 4 days by the Enforcement Directorate. The ED had asked for 8 days, they got 4 days. Lots of comments on coup. Adarsh writes in, says the ED's raids have jumped 27 times in the last 8 years. Jeet says the ED has the powers to seize, search and arrest. Mohit says this shows the government's commitment to prevent money laundering. So it really depends which way you're looking at it. But I think given the disparity in numbers of cases against government leaders and against those in the opposition, some would suggest that the Enforcement Directorate is being used as a tool for political vendetta. We leave it there from all of us here.